Everyone feared him until he was the only one who stepped in to save her. Shadows in the archives. The 53rd floor of Meridian Corporation's headquarters was known as the Archives, a digital labyrinth of servers, data repositories, and security protocols where information went to be stored, classified, and sometimes forgotten. Most employees avoided the place, claiming the air felt different there, heavier somehow. But it wasn't just the recycled atmosphere that made people uneasy. It was him. Darius Reeves moved like a ghost among the humming machines, his tall, gaunt figure casting long shadows across the blue-lit server racks. His hair, prematurely gray despite being only 36, contrasted sharply with his perpetually dark clothing. The few employees who needed access to the archives referred to him in whispers as the curator, or sometimes the specter, never to his face, of course. Request for security protocol override on Financial Archive D17, Mr. Reeves, came the crisp voice through the intercom. Authorization from Director Harlow. Darius didn't look up from his terminal. Denied. A pause. Sir, this is a direct request from. I'm aware of who Director Harlow is, Darius replied, his fingers continuing to move across his keyboard. The request violates separation of access protocols. Section 11, Paragraph 7 of the Archive Security Charter. Tell the director he needs dual authorization from both Financial Operations and the Ethics Committee. The silence on the other end lasted several seconds. No one argued with Darius Reeves. Not because he held significant power in the corporate hierarchy. Technically, he didn't. But because of what happened 3 years ago to the last executive who tried to force his hand. Nobody knew exactly what Darius had done, but the executive had resigned the following day, his reputation in tatters, his offshore accounts mysteriously emptied. Yes, Mr. Reeves. I'll inform the director. Darius returned to his work, the gentle click of his keyboard the only sound in the vast room. His job was to maintain the integrity of information, nothing more. Whether Meridian's executives liked his methods was irrelevant. They had hired him for his uncompromising approach to data security, even if they hadn't anticipated just how uncompromising he would be. 3 floors below, Lyra Novak was having the worst day of her 8-month career at Meridian Corporation. The pharmaceutical research division was supposed to be her dream job. Cutting-edge science, generous funding, and the promise of helping develop life-saving medications. What they didn't mention in the recruitment brochure was the crushing bureaucracy and the strange compartmentalization of information. What do you mean I can't access the Phase 1 trial data? Lyra asked, pushing a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. I'm supposed to be analyzing the compound's effectiveness patterns. Bernard, her supervisor, avoided her eyes. The data's been classified. Restricted access. Restricted. Why would preliminary effectiveness data be restricted? That doesn't make sense. Bernard shuffled uncomfortably. Look, Novak, just work with what you have. Some things at Meridian operate on a need-to-know basis. But I do need to know. How am I supposed to design Phase 2 protocols without understanding what happened in Phase 1? You'll get a summarized report, Bernard said, turning away. Just do your job. Lyra sat at her desk, frustration building. This wasn't the first time critical information had been withheld from her team. Last month, it was patient response data. Before that, molecular stability analyses. The pattern was becoming disturbing. She glanced around at her colleagues, all quietly working within their designated lanes, never questioning, never pushing back. Was she the only one who found it strange? With a decision that would eventually alter the course of her life, Lyra waited until the lab emptied for lunch before accessing her terminal. If she couldn't get the information through proper channels, perhaps there were improper ones. Lyra had always had a knack for computer systems, not professional-level skills, but enough to navigate beyond the standard user interfaces. 20 minutes of cautious probing led her to a backdoor into the research database. Not technically hacking. She told herself, just creative access. What she found made her blood run cold. The effectiveness data wasn't restricted because of proprietary concerns. It was hidden because it showed catastrophic liver damage in 63% of test subjects, damage that had been deliberately omitted from the official reports. Even worse, despite these findings, Meridian was pushing to fast-track the drug for approval. "This can't be right," she whispered, downloading files to her secure drive. But as she dug deeper, the evidence mounted, not just for this drug, but for 3 others currently in development. Falsified data, suppressed side effects, manipulated trial results. People would die if these medications reached the market. So focused was she on the horrifying information unfolding before her that Lyra didn't notice the security alert triggered by her unauthorized access, an alert that flashed silently on a terminal 53 floors above. Darius Reeves frowned at the notification. Someone was accessing restricted pharmaceutical data from a research terminal. Not unusual in itself, researchers often stretched the boundaries of their access, but the pattern of files being opened suggested something more deliberate than casual curiosity. He should report it immediately. That was protocol. His finger hovered over the security alert button, but something made him hesitate. The access wasn't random or destructive. It was methodical, focused specifically on discrepancies between raw data and official reports. Someone was looking for the truth. Against his better judgment, Darius traced the terminal ID. Lyra Novak, junior researcher, pharmaceutical development, 8 months with the company. Stellar academic record. No security flags. Until now. Instead of issuing an alert, Darius did something he hadn't done in his 3 years at Meridian. He watched and waited. By evening, Lyra knew she was in trouble. Her keycard had mysteriously deactivated, her access to the research database had been cut off, and Bernard had called in sick after their conversation. Walking to her car in the underground parking garage, the heavy feeling of being watched prickled at the back of her neck. "Ms. Novak." The voice from the shadows nearly made her heart stop. A tall figure stepped out from behind a concrete pillar. "Who are you?" she demanded, her hand tightening around her keys, positioning them between her fingers as a makeshift weapon. "Someone who knows what you found today." The man stepped into the light. Gray hair, sharp features, eyes that seemed to calculate everything. And someone who knows that in approximately 12 minutes, Meridian Security will receive an order to detain you for corporate espionage. Lyra backed away. "I didn't steal anything. I just saw evidence of criminal negligence and fraud," he finished for her. "Yes, I know. The question isn't what you found, Ms. Novak. It's what you plan to do with it." "Who are you?" she repeated. "Darius Reeves. I work in the archives." Recognition flickered across her face. Everyone at Meridian had heard rumors about the archive's mysterious guardian. "You're the one they're afraid of." "The one, whoa. Rumors are generally exaggerated," he cut her off. "But in this case, not entirely unfounded. Are you here to stop me?" Darius's expression remained unreadable. "That depends on your intentions." Lyra straightened her shoulders. "People will die if these drugs go to market. I can't let that happen." For a moment, something that might have been approval flickered in Darius's eyes. "Then we have approximately 10 minutes before security receives their orders. 9 if Director Harlow finishes his coffee early." "We?" Lyra asked, uncertain. "The evidence you discovered is just the surface, Ms. Novak. I've been tracking Meridian's data manipulations for months, building a case." He extended a hand holding a small data drive. "This contains everything you found today, plus significantly more, encrypted and secured. The encryption key is only accessible off-site. Why would you help me? You work for them." "I work for information integrity," Darius corrected her. "And what Meridian is doing violates every principle of data ethics." He glanced at his watch. 8 minutes now. "Decision time, Ms. Novak. You can try to explain yourself to security, which I don't recommend, or you can come with me." "Where?" Somewhere we can expose what Meridian is doing without ending up like the last 3 whistleblowers. What happened to them? Lyra asked, though she feared she already knew the answer. Darius's expression darkened. 2 had unfortunate accidents. The 3rd is currently enjoying an extended stay in a private psychiatric facility, diagnosed with paranoid delusions. A chill ran down Lyra's spine. They wouldn't. They would, and they have. Darius checked his watch again. 7 minutes. Lyra thought of the falsified data, of patients who would suffer, of families who would lose loved ones to a medication that Meridian knew was dangerous. She thought of her comfortable apartment, her promising career, the life she had carefully built. "How do I know I can trust you?" she asked. For the first time, Darius Reeves smiled, a small, tight expression that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You don't. But right now, Ms. Novak, I'm the only one in this building who isn't actively trying to silence you." Lyra took a deep breath and made her decision. "Lead the way, Mr. Reeves." As they moved toward the service exit, neither of them noticed the security camera that swiveled silently to track their movement, nor the alert that flashed on Director Harlow's phone. Potential CQURITBURT. Archai. These. The hunt had begun. Beyond the firewall, the first 14 hours after leaving Meridian headquarters were a blur of movement for Lyra. Darius had led her through a series of transportation changes that seemed designed to confuse even the most determined pursuer. A taxi to the train station, 3 different subway lines, a bus to the outskirts of the city, and finally a nondescript sit-in that he retrieved from a long-term parking garage. "Do you always travel like you're in a spy movie?" Lyra asked as they drove through the darkened countryside, the city lights fading behind them. "Only when I'm being hunted by a multi-billion-dollar corporation with connections to private security firms and several government agencies," Darius replied without humor. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, eyes constantly checking the mirrors. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere off-grid, a place I've prepared." Lyra studied his profile in the dim dashboard light. The man was a contradiction. He worked for the very corporation they were now fleeing, yet he seemed to have anticipated this exact scenario. "You've been planning this for a while, haven't you?" Darius nodded once. 3 years, 2 months, and approximately 17 days, ever since I discovered what happened to Project Helix. What's Project Helix? A clinical trial that never officially existed. 47 participants, 23 deaths, all records expunged except for the backup I managed to secure before they could reach the archives. His voice remained eerily calm, but Lyra noticed his knuckles whitening on the steering wheel. That was when I realized what kind of organization I was working for. Then why stay? Why not leave? Because sometimes the only way to dismantle a system is from within. He glanced at her briefly. Until today, I was just gathering evidence. Your discovery accelerated the timeline. Dawn was breaking when they finally turned onto a narrow dirt road that wound through dense pine forest. At the end stood a cabin that looked rustic from the outside, but, as Lyra soon discovered, contained technology that would make Meridian's IT department envious. "Welcome to the bunker," Darius said, powering up a series of monitors and servers. Solar-powered, satellite internet through rotating proxy channels, and completely isolated from any identifiable networks. Lyra stared at the sophisticated setup. How does an archivist afford all this? Darius paused, his back to her. When he turned, his expression had changed, less guarded, revealing a hint of something like regret. "Before I was Darius Reeves, archivist for Meridian Corporation, I was Darius Reeves, government cybersecurity specialist. My job was identifying vulnerabilities in systems that were supposed to be impenetrable." He sat down heavily in an ergonomic chair. "I was very, very good at my job." "So you're, what? Some kind of hacker?" "I prefer ethical security consultant," he said with the ghost of a smile. "At least, that's what I was until a mission went wrong. A foreign operative died during an information extraction. It was ruled within operational parameters, but he trailed off. But you couldn't live with it, Lyra finished quietly. Darius nodded. I left that life behind. Changed fields. Became the guardian of information rather than its hunter. His eyes met hers. I thought working in corporate data security would be simpler, cleaner. I was wrong. Understanding dawned on Lyra. That's why everyone at Meridian is afraid of you. They know what you can do. They know what they think I can do, he corrected. They hired me because of my reputation for information security, not knowing that I was actually studying them, documenting every falsified report, every covered-up incident. He turned to the main computer and inserted the data drive from the parking garage. With what you found, we finally have enough to expose them completely. For the next 2 days, they worked tirelessly, compiling evidence, cross-referencing data, and building an irrefutable case against Meridian Corporation. Lyra's scientific expertise complemented Darius's technical skills perfectly. They barely slept, sustained by coffee and the driving need to finish before Meridian could cover their tracks. On the morning of the 3rd day, as Lyra was analyzing liver toxicity reports, an alert flashed across Darius's main monitor. "What's that?" she asked, noticing his sudden tension. "Proximity alert. Someone found us." He switched to the security camera feeds that surrounded the property. 3 black SUVs were approaching on the dirt road, still about 2 miles out. "How?" Lyra's heart raced. "I thought we were off-grid." "We are." Darius's expression darkened. "Which means someone I trusted talked." He began typing rapidly, initiating what appeared to be an elaborate shutdown sequence. "We have approximately 12 minutes before they arrive. The data is ready. We just need to release it." To whom? The media? The FDA? Everyone. Darius revealed a program unlike anything Lyra had ever seen. "This will simultaneously distribute our evidence to regulatory agencies, major news outlets, medical journals, and a network of trusted journalists worldwide. Once it's released, it can't be contained." A new alert sounded. The intruders were moving faster than expected. "We need to go," Darius said, grabbing a backpack and tossing another to Lyra. "There's an escape route through the back." "What about launching the data?" Lyra asked, panicked. Darius hesitated, his finger hovering over the execute command. "If I launch it now, they'll know exactly what we've sent and to whom. They could intercept some of it, discredit the sources. Then what's the plan?" His eyes met hers, resolute and calm despite the danger. "I stay and launch it manually. Time to allow maximum distribution. You take this." He handed her a small device. "It contains everything, plus instructions. Get to the rendezvous point I've programmed in the GPS. If I don't show up in 24 hours, contact the person listed as Sentinel." Lyra shook her head. "I'm not leaving you behind." "This isn't a debate, Ms. Noack," Darius said firmly. "One of us needs to ensure the information gets out. You're unknown to them. I'm not." The sound of vehicles growing closer emphasized his point. "There's something you're not telling me," Lyra said, suddenly certain. Darius' expression softened almost imperceptibly. "The person who betrayed our location works for the government, not Meridian. I recognize the approach pattern of those vehicles. They're from my old agency, which means this just became significantly more complicated. All the more reason we should both leave." "No." His voice was gentle but firm. "Trust me on this. I know how they operate. I can delay them, ensure the data gets out properly." He pressed the backpack into her hands. "Go. Now. Through the back. Follow the stream northward. There's a vehicle hidden under camouflage netting about half a mile up." Lyra wanted to argue further, but the determination in his eyes stopped her. With a reluctant nod, she took the backpack and headed for the back door. "Lyra," Darius called after her. She turned. "Whatever happens, what you discovered matters. Don't let them convince you otherwise." The sounds of approaching vehicles grew louder as Lyra slipped out the back door and into the forest. Inside, Darius returned to his workstation, calmly initiating a complex sequence of commands that would ensure their evidence reached every intended recipient. As the first vehicles pulled up outside, he activated one final protocol, a digital tripwire that would trigger if anyone attempted to halt the transmission. The cabin door burst open. Armed agents in tactical gear poured in, weapons raised. Darius Reeves announced a stern voice he recognized all too well. Director Powell, his former superior, stepped through the doorway. "You're interfering with matters of national security." Darius leaned back in his chair, the picture of calm despite the weapons pointed at him. "Interesting definition of national security, Powell. Since when does covering up corporate fraud that kills innocent citizens qualify?" Meridian is a government contractor developing critical pharmaceuticals for military applications, Powell replied coldly. "Your actions threaten projects vital to national defense." By vital projects, you mean drugs that cause liver failure in over 60% of subjects. Darius shook his head. "The Meridian contract is worth billions to your agency. That's what you're protecting, not national security." Powell's eyes narrowed. "Where's the woman?" "Novak. Gone, along with copies of everything we found." Darius nodded toward his monitor, where a progress bar was steadily advancing. "As is all our evidence, currently being distributed worldwide. Try to stop the transmission, and it immediately sends to an additional 100 recipients." Powell's face tightened with anger. "You have no idea what you've done." "Actually, I do." For the first time since leaving his government position, Darius felt a sense of peace. "I've chosen a side, Powell, the right one." As agents moved to secure him, the transmission completed its cycle. Throughout the world, emails arrived simultaneously at regulatory agencies, news desks, and medical journals. The carefully compiled evidence began its rapid spread across the internet, impossible to contain. Miles away, Lyra found the hidden vehicle exactly where Darius had promised. As she drove toward the rendezvous point, her phone buzzed with news alerts, stories breaking about Meridian Corporation, pharmaceutical fraud, and government complicity. Darius had succeeded. She waited a full 24 hours at the rendezvous location, desperately hoping to see his tall figure approaching. When he didn't appear, she reluctantly contacted Sentinel as instructed. To her surprise, Sentinel turned out to be a former FDA commissioner who had resigned 3 years earlier under mysterious circumstances, the same year Darius had joined Meridian. "Mr. Reeves prepared me for this possibility," the woman told Lyra when they met. "He knew the risks when he started collecting evidence against Meridian." "It's he." Lyra couldn't finish the question. "Alive?" "Yes, in custody, but alive. His former agency won't risk creating a martyr, especially now that the information is public." The woman handed Lyra a folder. "Inside you'll find a new identity, credentials to testify before a congressional committee, and contact information for journalists who will help tell your story." "What about Darius?" "Mr. Reeves made his choice years ago," she said with a knowing look. "He once told me that redemption sometimes requires sacrifice." 3 weeks later, as Lyra testified before Congress about Meridian's fraudulent practices, she noticed a familiar figure watching from the back of the hearing room. Though thinner and sporting a beard, there was no mistaking Darius Reeves's intense gaze. He gave her a nearly imperceptible nod before slipping out the door. That evening, a message arrived at her hotel. "Some shadows are worth stepping out of. Thank you for reminding me. Dr." Lyra smiled as she read it. The man everyone feared had turned out to be the only one willing to risk everything to save not just her, but countless others who would never know his name. As Meridian Corporation faced investigations and its executives were indicted one by one, she understood what Darius had meant about dismantling systems from within. Sometimes the most effective guardian isn't the hero in the spotlight, but the watchful presence in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to act.